So there's a lot of talk about the Constitution these days. So this is constitutional, that's constitutional. Way back when Tanya Harding was a thing, people were talking about her constitutional right to skate in the Olympics. Constitutional right to engage in a voluntary international sporting event. Show me where the heck that's written. People have wild ideas of what the Constitution actually says. Never mind the Supreme Court's interpretations over a bunch of years. Right? So let's look at some pieces. I'm going to look at the Declaration of Independence to start. I'll refer a bit to the Bill of Rights as we move along. So, reading the transcript, and this site, by the way, the archive.gov site, don't be afraid of .govs. Right? The government is not evil, and you pay huge taxes for them to gather massive amounts of data and store lots of information. I won't say that evil doesn't exist in places, but that's not its nature. All right, so looking at a transcript on the Declaration of Independence, there are elements in here that we can use to talk about rhetorical analysis. So this begins the unanimous declaration of the 13 states, all vote peace there, versus the other cases they'll use down below of America. So when in the course of human events come. So we have an introductory phrase, actually a prepositional phrase. As the first words, what's it doing? Right, and contextualizing it, how so? You're totally on. It's all good introductions provide this. In this case, it's the course of human events, all of human history, past, present, and future. If there is a tone of audacity in the Declaration of Independence, this is where it begins. Right? The course of human events, it becomes necessary, and that is a key word. It becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another. Now notice again, necessary for one people. Who? All, any. Past, present, future. Right? To dissolve the political bands. All kinds of political structures. That's how broad this begins. Broadly political philosophy. Okay? And to assume among the powers of the earth. What are the powers of the earth?
Everything.
You want to say nature?
No, they mean something particular. Well, we're not there yet.
Government?
White people.
But the powers of the earth, but it's narrower than that. We still use that term, but we added another word to it. Exactly. And who are they? France, England, Spain, and the Netherlands. I know it's funny, Jay. I do that. Not truly a tiny little country that ended up having a global impact. France, England, Spain, and the Netherlands. Okay? So when we talk about that powers of the earth, that's the context of using powers. Okay? The separate and equal station. Separate and equal station. Now that word gets a lot of use in the French Revolution shortly after. But we know what station is, don't we? Exactly. Socioeconomic status. It is a level, right? That's station in this sense. So we have separate, and separate is sovereignty. That one's easy, right? Among the powers of the earth, we get to be separate. Therefore, separate sovereignty and have all the things that sovereignty talks about. Okay? And then equal. Nations get to do some things and not other things, and okay, that begins to make sense, but it requires some translation. To which the laws of nature and of nature's God, I think God is going to come into this, entitle them. There's that wonderful word that we use, not too much there, maybe not enough. We'll talk about that later. But entitled.
Okay. This is something that they have, should have, and entitled has also that sense of should have. Okay? So, you have laws of nature.
That one's easy, right? Laws of nature. Of necessity, I said that word is important, of necessity, because they're building a logic case here, right? And they mean that just as of necessity, this pen must fall under the laws of nature, right? They're going to make the case that they must, necessary to make the break. It's actually really a deductive logic in this piece. Okay. So you have a long when-then clause. Laws of nature, and nature's God, entitle them. And it's always kind of funny, folks who say, oh yeah, no, they were all deists, they weren't really Christians. Much of the story you were told, maybe oversimplistically, about Protestants fleeing the continent and coming to the New World is true. The Protestants are what? Christians. Right? So the capital G there would be, of course, natural to them.
I think we actually have, we know the specific denomination of all but two of the Declaration signers. So that argument, oh, they were all a bunch of atheists, they weren't really Christians in any sense, there's a whole lot of historical.
All right. When all this is true, when it is necessary, all right? Here's our then, it's not written in there. A decent respect to the opinions of mankind. What the heck do they care? Remember this, when in the course, they are making this claim. That's why I talk about the audacity of the document. Is we're not just explaining ourselves to the country we're breaking from, we're explaining to all humanity. A decent respect, and this is important too. We are not, and they're going to make this part of their argument, right? We're not just a bunch of anti-tax crazies. Right? Don't like paying taxes, I break with thee, I break with thee, I break with thee. Sometimes it looks a little like that. And they have to make the argument that that's not so. So we have a decent respect to the opinions of mankind. We are rational, reasonable, and courteous. From an ethos sense, right? That is the credibility, trustworthiness, status of the writer. This is ethos. Right? A decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel, when necessary, impel. We have to have, like a pen falling, that kind of force. That this is not a debatable issue. Okay? Which impel them to the separation. So if I'm doing rhetorical analysis on this, I'm identifying things like the ethos pieces. Okay? And in terms of pathos, in terms of an emotional appeal, what's the emotional appeal? I gave a hint earlier.
Cross and persecution. Okay, I don't know.
Well, it's not there yet. They will get there much more explicitly. Right now, they've maintained that complete tone of reason. And so from a straight pathos point, the only thing it even is flavored with is the audacity of the claim. That this language is for all humanity, not just, why not just write Britain and say, we're done? Last two paragraphs of the Declaration of Independence, get it done. What's all of this? And for a reason. Right? They set it up this way because their audience is varied. Part of their audience is, well, powers. France, England, Spain. This was a lovely chunk of land wanting to be pieced out by white Europeans. Looking to, again, choice real estate. The age of colonialism, imperialism. Still a great chunk of real estate. Okay? So there's some fear, and legitimate fear, that, France and Spain would simply piece this thing out. Oh, wow, you break with the other superpower that's protecting you. There's a decent chance that, France will simply gobble up more than North. Spain already had well settled central. So their reaches, even by the first Jamestown colony, by the time of the Jamestown colony, if you look at the map of the Spanish settlements, extensive. Before the British were even getting a tiny hold in New England. So, legitimate fear. Okay. Yeah. So we have this audience where we have the aristocracy, the learned, educated aristocracy is one audience. Then, of course, there's all the folks who are simply trying to feed their families. You're going to try to motivate people who are struggling to survive, struggling to make their farms work, struggling to keep the early textile manufacturing going for their communities. At least you to make a living. Put down their means of making a living and go fight trained soldiers. You're have a heck of a job. And this is a heck of a job. And so all this time that I spent on, by the way, that's the first and only period. That was the analysis, rhetorical analysis of the first sentence. I'm going to have you do rhetorical analysis on 3 pieces as your first papers. The nice thing is it kind of stays consistent and I have some teaching on it. Again, looking for that logos, ethos, pathos. What is logos? That is the logic. And I said this is a deductive. It's the long when then clause, right? The conditional claim. When this happens, then this happens. For force. And then all of the support has to be proving the first part, right? The when clause. Going a bit further. We hold these truths to be self-evident. Now, it doesn't say these truths are self-evident. And trust me when I say the word choices are important. Not accidental, not undebated. It's been said in various legal circles that right here, what we're seeing is the conditions for citizenship in the United States. The earliest basis for what makes Americans Americans. What do you have to agree to be part of this club? And we hold these truths to be self-evident. They're all men are created equal. And what the heck does that mean? And we have, 200 years of jurisprudence trying to figure out what that means. Because it's not that easy. Okay. Now my examples are getting out of date, but I'm going to go with them anyway. Jeffrey Dahmer, Mother Teresa. Equal in some senses, not equal in others. We throw around that equality term like it means something. It doesn't without a whole lot of modifiers. By itself, it is roughly meaningless. Okay. I want equality. What do you mean by that? Most of our law has been equal in terms of equal as in your status as human beings is higher and different than the status of trees and rocks. So you have that fundamental level of equality as human beings. And that was, of course, the most critical element when it comes to slavery and Americans. Right? It's like, wait a minute, if we have meaning behind our words, equality as human beings means, hey, we treat other human beings with a certain dignity afforded all human beings. Okay? The rest of the equality equation really became a question of level playing field. Everybody gets a chance to either start from the same place, which we know is not true, or we don't have intentional barriers that we should erase, or unintentional barriers that we can erase to particular groups. So we start looking at barriers. First is the level, is the playing field level, and then who has what barriers? Are those barriers only faced by a particular group? Well, then there is an inequality, right, that we can address. So it takes a little more, it's worth digging into. Very worth digging into. All right, but notice it says that all men are created equal. And then again, that's not its words, right? We have God in the first sentence. They do mean human beings as a creation with the status that entails. That they're endowed by their God-see creator with certain unalienable rights, things you can't take away. And among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Now, a lot of folks seem to think that's in the Constitution. It's not. In the Declaration of Fact. Is this thing we believe by? No. This is a great statement of philosophy, but it is not the law. Now, I do believe that those terms, life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, are addressed in the Constitution. Specifically, the Bill of Rights. You know, what could they have meant by? Well, life is an easy one, right? Because, well, in a social political structure where folks are just put to death because I don't like you, die. That's a problem. That your right to life, not to have it indiscriminately taken away, not without some legitimate purpose. Now, that legitimacy of purpose gets us to, well, like, soldiers in the field, right? Is the purpose that justifies the risk to those lives. And if those lives are voluntary, then that's an easier equation. If it's the draft, it becomes a little more pressing. Okay. Liberty, again, pretty easy one, right? Because how many folks were jailed as political dissidents? I mean, that's our political dissidence philosophy right there. You don't get to jail, deprive the liberty of folks without due process. There it is, right? And that, again, comes really, it comes later. Our Constitution is the 14th Amendment. But in terms of jurisprudence, it is a thing that we work a lot on. Why do we let the obviously guilty go? I mean, there's all the math on the dashboard. And the person walks away. Well, if the officer did not have reasonable suspicion to pull over the car in the first place, that person was not afforded due process. That person wasn't apprised of their attorney. All of these things are constitutional defects that pretty much destroy a case. Why prosecutors around the United States always want to take a policeman by the throat? Because what's going to happen? The officer's going to go on the stand. Defense attorney's going to say, "And did you?" And the officer's going to stammer, and the case goes on. Due process, kind of important thing. And so that begins its life in this piece. Now, the pursuit of happiness. I think the Constitution answers that one too. What does it mean here? Yeah, it's like that. I remember that was a debated topic, right? We had Tory, we had those loyal to the crown. Lots. So so what did it mean? So it doesn't seem to mean much until we attach something to it. When you say getting away from Britain, we're actually getting close. Again, if I think about the Bill of Rights, what's the first one? Where does it hit first in the Bill of Rights? Close. Freedom of religion. There's 2 clauses on religion before we get to speech. And everybody says, "Oh, First Amendment, speech." Religion comes first. Which is consistent with this document, isn't it? I mean, we start to look at these pieces together, and you're like, well, wait a minute, we got God, we got the Creator. Right. It's coherent. Okay? So, in terms of pursuit of happiness, religion is how you make sense out of your place in the great scheme of things. About reality. It is, well, it's one of the two taboo subjects because at the same time, it is one of the two most important subjects of your life. And if I said it's one of the taboo subjects, well, what's the other one? Politics. Freedom of speech is first and foremost for about affecting democracy, your ability to say your piece, to print your piece, to gather to say your piece. So the First Amendment has these very direct purposes about the pursuit of happiness, just as that preamble is about promoting the general welfare of the citizenry. What makes for happy folks? And then the other would be, and they don't have this here, but pursuit also uses this hint, to make a life. Right? This was all, go to the new world and make a life. And we still do that. We want to go make a life somewhere. Or we want to stay put and make a life. So that's fundamental to our pursuit. Totally. I think Maslow's list of needs, shelter, food, right? We have to pursue that. All of that is laid in here. So again, but what about, the States versus Britain? Is that anywhere in here? No, we're still hugely broadly philosophical. Again, trying to prove to the viewers that we are rational. This is well thought out. And that the timing is also reasonable. And you're going to see those things mirrored in Martin Luther King's letter from jail. He will actually allude to some of this language. Right? That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men. It doesn't say democracies, it's just governments, all forms. Just as the first sentence was about, all forms, right? Deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed, which is actually not that shocking a statement. You think, wow, monarchs would have thought that terrible. Well, monarchs were keenly aware throughout human history that you had to keep the people happy. That your main goal was to keep the people happy. It was only the people who could keep those closer to you, the aristocracy, off your back. Right? In the normal power play, who has access to the king or queen? Right? Baronesses, marquis, marquess. Yeah. Who could actually do in the king? Yeah, first and easy access. Okay. So, no, and that is why through dominance, through the literature, is the people loved the monarchs. They were often bad ones. That was usually followed good ones. It was almost always a great king followed by lousy offspring. Probably because being a great king meant no parenting. I would guess, cause effects, right? Massively great king, totally with people, everybody's infrastructure gets built, all this goes nuts. And then along comes the offspring. Right? And so a good student of history will see that over and over and over. Or the king does something stupid like, well, King Lear, I know what I'll do. I'll divide my kingdom out among my 3 children. That never works for anybody, right? Dividing the kingdom up among 3 siblings or 2 siblings, yeah, that hurts as well. Lots of good literature on the 2 brothers, just duking it out and dying in the field together, usually. Yeah, great fun. All right, so this one actually wouldn't have shook them that much. However, we get it's a little more striking here, right? That whenever any form, form government becomes destructive of these ends. Here's where it gets weird. It is the right of the people to alter or abolish. And notice here it's alter or to abolish. So it's still softened a little bit. I know, we can make some changes. It's not all about off of his hat. Okay? And to institute new government, laying its foundations on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as then shall seem most likely to affect their life. And that is, why government? Right? Okay, I'm going to try out the materials on this a little bit. Why government? This is it. This is the fundamental reason for all governments in the world. It's why we have government. Right? When I think about Thoreau, it's like, no government, no government. And I'm like, yeah, have you seen people without governance? Not pretty. Reform government, like reform clubs first for safety and happiness. Same through gangs, isn't it? Right? Gangs are formed for safety first, happiness second. Want to survive, want to thrive. Makes sense? And so whether we're talking clans, right? We're going from family structure up through the clan structure, up through the village structure, up through the superpower structure. Those are it. Every piece of legislation today that goes through that crazy thing called Congress has to address directly one of those two things. Safety and happiness. Prudence indeed will dictate the governance long established should not be changed for life and transient causes. And accordingly, all experience has shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer, while evils are sufferable, than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed. They really softened this, haven't they? Yeah, because they're trying to prove they're rational. That this is a reasonable thing. And they've got, this is definitely for Europe. As part of the piece is all about that European audience. And we know something about this. If you know anybody in a terrible, terrible relationship and you're thinking, wow, they fight all the time, they snap at you. Why the heck are they still together? Because this is true. Right? At the one-on-one relationship. It's true at jobs that you just freaking hate. They're not going to leave because the devil you know is a whole lot easier to deal with than the unknown devil that may or may not come next. It's a natural thing. And so they're staying at this level of philosophy. And they're trying again to prove in an ethos sort of way that they're reasonable. Now, they keep setting up the necessity piece, right? Because we said it's their right to do this. Okay? And then we're going to say, but when by the way, it's one of my thou shalt nots. Don't start sentences. How many of you told me you can do that? In informal writing, you get away with it all the time. But it's a conjunction, reality. And conjunctions are actually things that put things together. Putting a period before one is contradictory. So, no. All right, but when a long train of abuses and usurpations, and this was clever use, okay? Because this word, usurpation, usurp, in the past had only been used, obviously, if I want here. If that word, usurpation, was only used in terms of the monarch. The only person who could be usurped was that single entity. So they rather cleverly inverted its meaning here. Okay? Train of abuses and usurpations. Pursuing invariably the same, notice this capital, object. You would say objective. Evinces a design. Right? This is intentional. There's evidence of a design. To reduce them under absolute despotism. What do you need for a despotism? There's a key ingredient for a despotism.
The big bad guy.
You gotta have a despot. Yeah, you have to have a despot. In the constitutional monarchy that was England, with its parliament under the Magna Carta, could King George really be characterized as a despot in any of our normal senses? It's hard. There's a little bit of a stretch. But they have, remember, the necessity argument means they have to get here. So it's not debatable. It is their right, it is their duty, right? We had right, we had duty up there, to throw off such government. Now, instead of alter or abolish, so we're now to throw off. We've lost the altar. Okay? and to provide new guards for their future safety, security. Right, so philosophical argument. This is the case. When this is the case, they got to do it. This is the case. Such has been the patient sufferance of these colonies, and such is now the necessity that, right, we're land on that word, which constrains them to alter their forward, we're back to alter their forward systems of government. The history, and I think they softened it here because they were going through this word systems. And they were going to create a new system. And that's why I'm using alter here. Okay. The history of the present king of Great Britain is a history of repeated injuries and usurpations. Sorry, abuses and usurpations. Repetition is a good thing. Right? It is mnemonics. Is to make your reader remember what you've done. All having a direct object, the establishment of absolute tyranny. Again, what do you got to have? A tyrant. Exactly. Because how effective would this thing have been if all of these sentences that say he has, if they said, well, Parliament's done this and Parliament's done that and Parliament's done, would that have got people to, lay down their plows, put up their horses, and go die? No. So for a pathos effect, they have to have a despot, a tyrant, a he. You gotta have a bad guy. Okay. And so that is the tool, the appeal that they're using here is a pathos appeal. And we won't get into, actually some of these are, well, like anything you would expect, maybe slightly inflated, slightly overstated, but there's some truth, some backgrounds. Like, yeah, we're stationing troops. Yeah, but that was because you're fighting an Indian war, right? Or you're fighting the French, right? And yeah, there's troops guarding colonies that were set up under charters, contracts with big firm back in England. Hey, we fund up all the money, we build the boat, we get you over there, you do stuff, you send it back to us to sell. Contracts. Hudson Bay Company is one of the larger ones of those. So the history gets a little more complex. And we call this a litany of woe. Okay? and it goes on and on and on. I'm not going to go through it all. But it goes, right? He. And then they get tired of he's, right? And they just drop to, we're doing this, we're doing this, we're doing this, we're doing this, we're doing this. And then he. We want to, again, end on that. We have an evil, right? We have to personify it, we have to have an image to fight, right? Now, okay, here's the close on this. In every stage of these oppressions, we conclusively complain. We have petitioned for this in the most humble terms. We've been reasonable. We have used the systems. Again, this is important when we look at Martin Luther King Jr. Our repeated petitions have been answered only by repeated injury. Again, that repetition, repeated injury back from paragraph. Whoa. A prince. Why does he refer to King George as a prince? Anybody got this one? Trivia question. Ding, ding, ding.
To say that he's immature.
No, sorry. Candy merchant. Okay. Machiavelli's the prince. All right. The evil was considered. Okay, the prince would be laying out Game of Thrones. Okay, how to get and keep power. That is the prince. Machiavelli is the prince. And the translation at the time, which was wrong, was the end justifies the means. That's actually not the accurate translation. The accurate translation is when considering the means, always bear in mind the end. If the end is power, the means are simply about gaining power. if the end is a peaceful reign, means will have to be consistent with the end. Right? So he was more nuanced thinker than just the end justifies the means. Right? But here, this is actually a form of name calling, indirectly. Right? It's a slam. Okay? Whose character is the smart way at which to find it? And there it is, a tyrant. Is unfit to be the ruler of a free people. And there's this concept of a free people. Free what? Free for what? Let's go away here. Okay? More argumentation that we could try. Where it said, we've tried. Let's flesh that out a little bit. You make a claim, you better add some proof that you've done it. British brethren. So we tried with the government, we tried with our relatives, you know, for political pressure. We've done all these things. Hasn't worked. Okay? So only this last paragraph really is the Declaration of Independence. We, therefore, represent the United States of America in General Congress assembled, appealing to the supreme judge of the world for the rectitude of our intentions, do, in the name and authority of good people, these colleagues, solemnly pledge and declare that these United colleagues are and right to be free of the United States. Break with the epic. There it is. Could have started there. Okay. Tactically speaking, you walk up to the street, you punch somebody in the face, you pretty much set the rest of the conversation, right? You kind of want to ease into that a little bit. Maybe you want to test waters. That's why we usually have, you know, words and chest bumping, and okay, because maybe we can settle this before we get to the part, to the end note on that one. Yes, communication works in exactly this way. Okay, when you talk about setting context, all papers must start setting context. What is the setting? Even for this letter from Birmingham jail, we'll spend a bit of time on this thing. What's the context? So right, the writer in jail for parade, you know, having a parade and assembly without permit. You have to have that context before we can move to the elements of the document itself. That was my little song and dance of rhetorical analysis of and if any of that got captured, I'll read it out and do something with it later.